This is a podcast about our lived experience, which unfortunately includes infant death and subsequent mental health struggles. Please take good care of yourself and only listen if this content feels safe for you right now. We'll still be here when you're ready.
Hi, I'm Judith.
And I'm Alina. We both lost babies to SIDS in winter 2021.
In the throes of grief, I reached out to a stranger on the internet and our friendship was born.
In the years since, we've been working hard to survive, rebuild, and navigate the continual challenges that have come our way, including divorce,
Job loss,
dating while bereaved,
moving multiple times,
health scares,
pregnancy and parenting a living child,
starting new jobs, and so much more.
We are tired.
Happily ever after is out of the question for us, but this podcast documents our journeys to happier ever after because we believe life after loss is worth living.
So join us as we laugh, cry until we laugh.
Welcome to As Long as I'm Living podcast.
We're so glad you're here.
I mean, if you have a different idea, I'm whatever, I don't care. But I think we should do the I Can Do It with a Broken Heart episode, and we should talk about the things that we're really still very good at in our lives, like how we've been crushing it at our jobs, how you're still a really good parent, how I was able to go on dates and like be a functional human being. Because I feel like people are so scared they're going to be like fucked up forever. And like, yeah, we're fucked up forever, but we're still completely
Wait,
living
I
our best
actually
lives.
had another idea that was right in tandem with that idea that I came up with. Like our brains must be on the same wavelength. I remember when Aiden first died, I wrote down a list of things that I was like, my never is never. Okay, all the things I lost. I wrote down a list of all the things that I lost. I never. So then I thought maybe I was gonna go back to my notebook and see what the things I wrote then, and see what I've done so far.
I love that.
Okay, hold on. Let me go see if I can find it.
Okay. Ooh, I love it. I love it.
Okay, so here's interesting. Going back to this because I haven't read this in a long time. So I wrote this June 7th.
Hold on. Let's do a little intro.
Okay. Okay. Hi.
Hi. Welcome to As Long as I'm Living podcast. I'm Alina Quinn's mom, and I'm here with Judith, Aiden's mom. And we've been talking already for like 10 minutes and then remembered that we didn't do an intro to the episode. So, hi, this is the intro to the episode. And now,
today we're going to be talking about.
Today we are going to talk about.
Okay, so the title of this week's episode is "I Can Do It with a Broken Heart," which I thought was a brilliant title.
Yeah,
and
to T Swift as always.
Yes,
this is not our first episode that is named after a Taylor Swift.
Is that true? Is that true?
It won't be the last, I'm sure.
I love her. I literally was thinking about her. Like, I think about her all the time. Like, I think about what her life is like. I think about what she must be up to right now. I think about like, I really feel like I like try and imagine like, okay, she was just in Dublin. Like, what do you think she's doing these days? Do you think she's like gonna, like, what does she do when she's in Europe? Like, she can't really go so many places, or maybe she does. Like,
maybe she does.
Then, maybe I was like thinking.
It's so funny though, Judith. You asked me when she first announced the Eras tour. You were like, "Would you go to the Eras tour with me?" And I was like, "I don't think I like Taylor Swift enough that it would be worth it to spend hundreds of dollars on tickets." Now it's been, how long has she been on this tour? Like a year and a half, 2 years. Now I'm like, yeah, I would fucking go to that tour. Like,
I would too, and I'm so sad to hear that because she's really ending in December, and I'm never gonna get to see her.
I know.
And now, like, I would really, really want to go, but we'll catch her on her reunion tour in 30 years.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. When Aiden died, I kept a journal, not for long, for time. Months, not years, months. And at some point in the journal, here I could read to you what I wrote. I think it's kind of interesting, actually, because I don't read these ever. This is what I wrote. Earl Sandberg writes about 3 Ps: the personal, pervasive, and permanent. And I said his loss does feel permanent. My sadness does feel permanent. But I think what I was trying to do is say, like, these are all the things that I feel like I've lost right now. Will they always be permanent? That's what I was kind of talking about.
I love this. So now we're looking back over 3 years later.
What's interesting is I wrote this June 7th. So he died March. This is June. And this is like actually very insightful and interesting. And what was also really interesting is like how forward thinking I was.
You were always, even from the very earliest days of us talking, you were always very forward thinking.
I'm shocked.
Like, this is how, like, I think you were always very much motivated by the idea that this was not going to ruin your life forever. And I think I was too. And like, obviously, I'm not going to deny in a way, our lives are ruined forever, right? However,
Yeah.
I think both of us from the very beginning were like, this is not it for us. There will be joy. There will be happiness. There will be a happier ever after.
But okay,
And
but
I think
what's
that's why we
really
became friends.
interesting is that you can tell I'm messed up because on the next page, I wrote things that fill my cup and things that drain my cup. Also, very insightful for being a couple months out. But under the list of things I wrote, the things that fill my cup, I wrote all the things that drain my cup. And under the things that I wrote things that drain my cup, I wrote like things that drain my cup. Talking to other lost moms. Like I clearly reversed the list. I wrote exercise. I wrote going to the cemetery, painting, acupuncture, therapy, gardening, going to the dog park, the beach, buying a treat for myself. I put that all into the wrong column.
Absolute perfection. What drained your cup?
Big groups of people dealing with logistics like paperwork, and then some family members. Yeah. Isn't that funny? Like this is super interesting. Okay. So I would love to hear from you. What are the things that you, like, I wrote this list of lost. What have I regained? And what are the things that you felt you lost? And what have you regained?
So I almost was going to frame it differently. Like, I feel like, I think that there is so much now that wasn't even on my radar as something that I could ever successfully do again. Like, I would not have thought that I could be as functional a person as I currently am. I almost think this is two separate episodes. One is snippets from our early days grief journals, because when you pulled yours out, I pulled mine up because mine was in a Google Doc. And I feel like just snippets of our actual words from those days would be such a funny episode.
Yeah,
so
let's do that right now because I have a call in 30 minutes.
And then the other is how functional we are now and the things that we've been able to get back.
So let's talk about the things that you feel like you completely were dysfunctional at that you have regained.
Yeah. When Quinn died, I think first of all, I just thought, oh, this is it. My life is over. That's it. My life is over. And I didn't want my life to be over, but I really did feel like it was, especially because I lost my partner and my baby at the same time. And I think I just thought I was going to wander through life without that level of connection to people ever again. Like, I think I thought my connections to people forever was gone. Mm-hmm. I had friends who, one friend in particular who you guys met on the podcast, Julia, who was pregnant with a baby at the same time. And I remember just thinking like, oh, well, that's it. Like, this is too painful. Like, I'm never going to be able to have a close relationship with her again. My family, I think family is so complicated, and we have an upcoming episode about how complicated family is after loss. Like, I loved them the same amount, but it was just so painful in some ways to be around them. There was someone who was missing all the time, Quinn. And then I also never thought I would fall in love again. I never did. I thought that part of my heart was just like broken forever. But I just somehow put myself out there and I fell in love again. And I think that, I mean, Judith, you said this in your speech at my wedding to Tyler, but like, I think that falling in love with Tyler, my husband, I think that like softened my heart in general to being able to connect with people again in a way that I think I hadn't been able to connect or feel close to people in the interim. Like, I think it was just like he like thawed my heart. Really. Wow. That sounds sweet. He would love that I just said that.
I think that's really sweet.
You're doing deep, I can hear you're at the end of a pregnancy because you're like.
No, I was just like thinking. I was just thinking about what you said. Yeah. And I'm reading my list. Yeah, I think that, okay, so now your husband thawed your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And do you feel like you've been able to regain all those relationships that you felt like you lost?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, I think all relationships change after loss. And also, I'm at an age where relationships change in general. But I think that I am now able to be around my family joyfully without a constant reminder of how painful it is that Quinn is not there in a way I didn't think was going to be possible.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I wrote my family and my sister. I wrote holidays. I wrote my faith. I wrote my friends. And I wrote being in this stage of life with them, which I actually think is interesting. Like, there is something really special about having your first baby when all your friends are having a first baby.
Yeah.
I wrote financial. I wrote my passion for life and like myself. I wrote my sense of security and sanity.
Do you think you have that back?
So what's interesting is how much I don't have back. That's what I would say. Like, there are certainly, like, okay, one thing I wrote is being quote unquote normal. I actually think, like, I do think that I have that back and that I can have normal conversations.
Me too.
But I don't think, like, I don't know. I don't think I got it all back. Like, certainly some friendships I've lost, or even if I haven't lost a friendship, I've kind of like lost my respect for their friendship. Like, it's like I almost feel like I can't count on you. So that's kind of like irreversible. Something's changed. Something's shifted in the water. My family, I agree with you. It felt like everything was going to be painful. So I think my family and I are in a really beautiful place right now where it's not painful. It is really joyful. It is really fun to be with them. But, my parents got divorced right when this happened. So I think our family entirely changed, some ways for the better, in some ways not for the better, whatever it is. But I don't think it went back to the way it was before. Like, it's not, and nothing, it's just different. It's in a different place.
Yeah.
And we're all as a family unit trying to find our place. In Aiden's loss and my parents' divorce, we're all trying to find this place again. It's not quite 100% resettled.
I actually think that's true for me too, because my parents didn't get divorced at the same time, but they did move from 5 hours away to a half an hour away when Quinn died. So I think, and my brother moved from New Jersey to Massachusetts. So we have all been at the same time as navigating Quinn's loss. We've also been navigating living as adults in the same state as each other and figuring out that facet of our relationship too. Living in the same place, which is
right. Yeah, my mom moved across the country. My husband came on the podcast. He spoke about his difficult times, and like that. We've made a tremendous amount of progress, but certainly it's just not where it was before. And I don't know if I would not feel comfortable saying like it was. I do think it would have been different no matter what. I don't think if Aiden died, it would be where it is. How about that? I think it would be in a different place if Aiden had been alive. So, okay, that's another thing. Financially, like we've spoken about the cost of loss. Like, I don't think that we financially recovered from the cost of loss yet. Do I think we're on our way? Sure. Okay, fine. But I also think like we will never be able to fully come back. Because of everything that happened, I don't think we'll able to be where we would have been had it not happened. Just the sequence of events of I just think sometimes it's kind of like your first job out of college. Like if you enter your college years, you like graduate college into a recession, like you can't necessarily 100% make that back. Like I remember when I work in the fundraising space when I was fundraising for a university, I went with the class of 2008 for something, and it was fascinating. Like I met with the class of, I worked in reunions. So I worked with the class of 2008, but then like I also was working in the class of 2003, and like the class of 2008 just never really recovered. And I feel similarly about people who graduated during the time of COVID. Like I suspect that they could just never really catch up. Maybe financially they have, because their deficits are maybe in like the mentorship area. It kind of feels like that. It feels like because of where we were in the stages of our careers and because of everything that happened with my husband's mental health, it just feels like I can never really catch up. We're set on a new trajectory now that cannot be reversed. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but I'm telling you that that's my thought. And then
the point of this episode, though, is that despite all of that, we are overall pretty normal, successful people. Really?
Yes, but I'm aware of that. But sure, I mean, like, I don't know. How do you judge who's normal, who's not? I'm just comparing to myself. All I can do is compare myself to myself.
I think my vision for this episode is more like, I want to give people hope that at some point they will be able to fake it till they make it. And at some point they will be able to make it to the point that it doesn't always feel like you're faking it.
Sure, but I think that the truth is way more nuanced than that. The truth is nuanced.
Yeah, and I think the whole podcast is the nuance. This episode
okay, so that's what I'm doing. I'm giving the nuance.
Okay, go for it.
What Alina's coming to say is that she is normal and everything is found its way back. And
oh my God, that's not what I'm saying at all.
Well,
I'm
what
just
are you
saying the other 153 episodes of this podcast is about how I'm a mess. This one is supposed to be about the ways that I'm not a mess.
Okay, so I'm telling you I'm not a mess, but it would be lying if I just said I'm not a mess. It would be a lie. So I'm telling you, I'm laying it out for you, the ways in which I'm functioning and the ways in which I'm not. I don't feel like it would be reasonable for me to say and yes, I function. Yes, I do function, but there's nuance to it. It's complicated.
Go for it.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. So then, okay. So another thing that I wrote here is PTSD and my sanity. And I think that on a whole, that I am back to like a good, normal, functional place. My PTSD, like it pops up at time, but in general, I don't struggle with this feeling that like if I don't hear from someone, they're dead. And in general, I'm less skittish. I'm like not skittish. Like I would say like I've returned to a normal sense of security.
I think that as much as is possible, I have healed from the trauma of finding him dead. But I obviously don't think like I'm healed in perpetuity, and I don't think the trauma of my son being dead is something that you can ever fully heal from. But I do think the trauma of finding him dead, which was its own, like I had to work through it in EMDR over the course of like 25 weeks. That I think I did a good job. And to your point, like I'm not constantly triggered by things anymore.
Yeah.
Really at all. I mean, every once in a while something hits me, but like triggers out of nowhere where I all of a sudden have a panic attack in public doesn't happen.
Exactly. Yes. Okay. Other areas that I feel like I wrote about here is being in the stage life as my friends. Like I think I would say on a whole, I've come to a place where like I think that I'm normal in that respect. I can throw my friend baby showers. I can like bring food for them for a meal train. I can talk about diaper sizes. I can complain about my toddler's tantrums in a way that for a long time I couldn't, and I couldn't handle to hear. You know, like I have one friend that she always like is stressed about her daughter's development. And like, I think it would be really hard for me in the beginning. Like I've been friends with her for a while. Like she was stressed that her daughter wasn't walking. And in the beginning that was like really hard for me because I'm like, this kid is fine and is going to walk. But now like she could talk about her kid's development. Like it doesn't trigger me at all. And if anything, I find it like entertaining. Like, so to me, and I have a friend that had a baby, her first baby, and I've been able to like find joy in it, you know, and excitement for her, and talk about decorating a nursery. And I just never thought I would get to do that with a friend again. And I think with this pregnancy, something that I've really like been trying to lean into is that can be fun. It can be fun to shop for nursery, whatever. And it can be fun to talk about I don't even know what. But the point is that it used to irritate me to no end before, and now it doesn't. And it used to trigger me, and now the trigger is a lot more manageable. So I would say in that respect, I'm normal. And then another thing I'd say is I live in a community where you could have 7 billion, like I lived in a community before where it was very normal to have a lot of children young. Like I don't live in a community like that anymore. So the community I live in now, people have children a little bit older and have fewer children. So I don't feel so behind. I feel like a lot of my friends are in their 30s and having, their first, second kids. So I think that part of that has been restored, and part of that has been a conscious decision on my part to spend time with people who are not 22 having their third kid. Oh my God. Another thing that I'll say is that I think in terms of like parenting, I thought that I was going to be a messed up parent. I thought that I was going to be like this. I remember my mom one time said to me, she's like, Judith, like, I'm just worried that your kid, it was when I was pregnant with my daughter. She's like, I'm just worried your kid is going to grow up in a household like, Holocaust victims did, like children of Holocaust victims, like where they're so, they like live in this world of trauma and unprocessed.
I should not
she literally said
Holocaust
that.
victims.
No, she really said that. She was talking to someone who lost a child and worked with Holocaust victims. I have to say, like, there was some context to the conversation, but she like said to the person, she was like, is Judith going to like be so messed up that this kid is going to be, like that? And I don't remember what the woman said, but I remember my mom said that and asked that. And I do not think that that is the energy in our home.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
If you came into our home and you saw like our parenting, I don't think you would think this is a sad home. Our kid is very, very happy, and we do all sorts of fun, goofy things that normal families do. And sure, like we do look at the Aiden book a lot. We do, and we talk about Aiden a lot, but we also do perfectly ordinary things like dance parties. And I would say that's like a slice of her life. I don't think she would. Yeah, and if anything, I think it's made me a better parent.
I also think like maybe that looked different when she was 2 months and 19 days old. Maybe that I know for a fact it looks different. I think maybe your house, if you had walked into your house when your daughter was 3 months old, I think it looked very different than it did as soon as she turned 1, basically, and you were like, phew.
Well, I'll also say that I'm grateful that I didn't have other children when Aiden died, because she didn't have to see me in that earliest stage. Yes. There was some space.
Yes.
For me to be able to, like, she won't remember the times that were really traumatic. So
I sometimes think about that with because I still 3.5 years out, don't have living children. So I sometimes think about that in the context of like, because you had her, she was born just about a year after Aiden died. So a lot of the first year of Aiden's loss was already her pregnancy. And then, she was born. And I think, for me, I've had so many years now to be
100%
doing my own shit and figuring my shit out, that by the time hopefully a child comes into the mix,
you're in a totally different place than I was. When I was pregnant with my daughter, I was 4 months out from the loss. And any pregnancy that you have at this point moving forward, you are in such a better, happier, healthier place.
More healed, sufficiently
so. So I would say that, like,
that's a good way to put it. Sufficiently healed. I don't think we're not healed. Like, we're not all better, but like we're sufficiently healed that we can be somewhat functional human beings.
It would be almost normal. I would say, like, from watching from the outside, it would look almost normal. I could say for this pregnancy versus my last pregnancy, it is almost normal. And I can tell you that because yesterday I spoke to the lady. Well, I went to the MFM, and the MFM was like, she was like, we want you to come back. I was like, in my last pregnancy, I came back for testing and ultrasounds every week. I don't remember. Maybe at 34 weeks, I started coming back every single week. And I was like, and she was like, well, do you want to do that again? And then I was like, no, I don't want to do that again. It takes an hour to get there. It takes an hour to be there. And it takes an hour to come home. Like, I value my time in a different way. Back then, I was like begging to go all the time. So now I'm going to go back I'm not going to say normal. Okay. Like, I'm going back one more time than the average person would go. But in general, I am sufficiently normal in how I'm tackling this.
Yes.
So, yes. And then, okay, I want to talk about this one last thing, and I don't know if you're going to relate to this. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. I don't know. But one thing I wrote here is like my joy for life.
Mm-hmm. Joie de vivre. I can't speak French.
Yes, as they say in France. Did you have that? Was that part of who you were as a person?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. My husband sometimes will say, and obviously he didn't know me before the loss, but one of his favorite things about me is that I get excited over like the teeniest, tiniest things. Like there's this story about me from college where we were walking down the street, and this is going to sound like I was drunk when this happened. It was the middle of the day. We were walking down the street, and there was a food truck that sold like fried dough, and I squealed with joy because there was a fried dough truck. Like I just got
That
so
is
excited
an exciting thing to
about
see, though.
fried dough, like out of nowhere. And like that's the kind of person I always was. And I think I just became so flat with the loss. And my husband has said, like, and we sometimes marvel at how early I met him in the loss. I was only 10 months out when I met him, less than 10 months out. And he would see like little glimmers of like that. And I would say to him, like, that's who I am. Like, despite you seeing like also the ways that I'm really fucked up, like I'm the person who gets so joyfully excited about fried dough when she sees fried dough truck. Like, and it's not just about the fried dough, but you know what I mean? Like little things will make me so happy. And I think that's something I lost in the beginning, and I have since regained completely.
So what makes you feel like you've regained it? Like do you feel like you can point to a time when you're like, oh, that's back? Do you feel like it's back 100%? Like, what would you say?
I don't know if it's that I met my husband, but it was around that time. And so it could be, like I was saying, like he thawed my heart and my whatever, or it could just be that time and the healing of the trauma. Like I think partly it was so many of the, I'm going to use air quotes, like surprises of my life, things that I wasn't expecting were so negative and triggering for so long. Like, oh no, there's an ambulance over there. Or like, oh no, there's a 4-month-old baby boy. Like, like I was like so startled and by things out in the world that were so negative that I would kind of close off my like vision. I would put like blinders on so that I wouldn't be startled by bad things. And that also closed me off to being startled positively by good things like fried dough trucks. And then I think at some point I healed enough that I was able to withstand. I had enough resilience that I was able to withstand those triggers. And so I could kind of take my blinders off and also be surprised and delighted by the lovely things in the world again. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's so beautiful. No, I think that's really beautiful. I feel like I have always, I don't know. I think what's come back is going to be what comes back. And I think and I do feel like I'm a joyful person. And I also feel like there's a piece of me that innocence will never come back. But what has come in its stead is a place of compassion, of empathy, of kindness, a place of stillness, and just like what's it? Acceptance, like wholehearted acceptance for people who are. And so I would say that I am not the same like joie de vivre, whatever you said.
Joie de vivre.
Joie, what?
I don't know that I'm saying that right.
Joie de vivre.
De vivre.
Joie de vivre. I would say I'm still a joyful person, but I would say but I am not the joyful person I was before. And I can recognize the beauty in what I've gained instead. I don't think what's replaced that is cynicism or sadness or depression or anger or resentment. What's replaced that is not that. It's kindness, compassion, empathy, understanding. And I can appreciate the beauty, and I can see how that offers the world even more maybe than the joy did. So
I also think that when this happens, I think something else that each of us has gained is a confidence that first of all, we've already lived our worst day. So you can wake 100%. Up in the morning and know that whatever shit goes down, it's not going to be as bad as it was before. So there's this like 100%. Very quiet confidence that I can handle whatever shit life is going to throw out
Yes.
your day, because it's not going to be as bad as the day that Quinn
Yes.
died.
Yes.
And so I think we have this confidence that, I mean, we'll be able to get it done in whatever way we need to get it done, even if it's bad. The worst day is only 24 hours long, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's another thing we've gained too. And a lot of people I see a lot in the loss community, people feeling resentment about like others in their life, expecting them to like integrate the loss and become a better person. And like, I don't want anyone to think that we're sitting here being like, we became better people, but like, there are ways I'm a better person since the
No,
loss.
I'm not saying,
I'm not as great.
I'm saying I profoundly lost a piece of myself that was beautiful and wonderful. And I'm saying that I also gained a piece that is not the same, that maybe people from the outside can't see in the same way, but I have grown to appreciate.
Yeah.
So I can't say that like, okay, this has come back. Sure, I think components of it has come back, but I don't think I will ever be that person. I don't think that part is ever coming back.
Yeah.
I do think I get excited about fried dough, and that is exciting. And I do think I'm like a joyful person, but I don't think I got that piece back, because I think that part of me, that like innocent,
the innocence is gone.
Innocence. And I also think part of it is just like life, like responsibilities, you know, like I have responsibilities. I didn't have them. Like you're comparing someone in their mid-20s to someone who's in their early 30s. It's just a different stage of life. But my point is just that there are some areas where I feel like I could confidently say to you, like, yeah, it came back and I'm doing great. And like, I'm sufficiently healed. And like, to people who are in the early days, like there is hope, because things get so much better and you will be okay. And what I'm saying is, it would be lying to say it came back the way it was.
100%. I could not agree with you more. I think the one area where I can say like I'm back and I'm better than before, honestly, is at work. I am so good at my job. And did I even tell you this? I was at work. I met up with a couple of coworkers in person, which I very rarely do. And it came up for a reason that I promise makes sense, that I have, I confessed basically that I have an infant loss podcast. And they were like, oh, you have I said, oh, and I have a podcast. They're like, you have a podcast? And I was like, I do have a podcast. And they were like, oh, how many episodes? And I was like, oh, like 147 or something. They're like, what? And I was like, yes. They were like, you have a weekly podcast in addition to your job? And I was like, yeah. They were like, and then I also had to, because I figured if they Googled it, they were going to find out like the whole thing. Because I talk about how Quinn died at work, but I don't talk about my marriage and all the things that happened with Kaylee. And so I told them that piece because I didn't want them to be surprised if they listened to an episode of the podcast. And they were like looking at me like, oh my God. Like, because they see me as like this functional person at work. But like, I mean, what is it that there's that line? I cry a lot, but I'm so productive. I cry a lot. Like my life is fucked up, but I also can get shit done at work. And like, that's something that I don't think I ever thought I would be able to do in the early days. I did not think that I would be able to get
that is probably true for me too, except I did not work in the early days. But I was talking, it's so funny because my meeting before this, I'm like writing an article for work, and the woman, it's been like really hard for me because like I don't want to say anything controversial. And I was like, Danny, please, like, let me talk about the cost of loss, because I could write you a kick-ass article about death and dying, about supporting grieving people, about loss. I could talk to you about anything, but like you're asking me to write about something that like I'm so nervous to put out there and have my name attached to. So I was like, but let's talk about something else. Like I could write things. I just can't write this thing. But then I did write it. But I kept being like, please, like this is so out of my comfort zone. But I would say, yeah,
we're out there. We're getting promoted.
Yeah, we're getting a promotion.
Like, I mean, seriously, like I
actually have a meeting in 1 minute to talk about mine.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing it, and we're also on the floor.
Yes. Yeah, I think my work is genuinely curious about how I function, because I think they're like, Judith. I think that they're genuinely like, they genuinely have said to me before, like,
yes,
you do not come off like you've lost a child.
Exactly.
I get that a lot.
Right. So
I get that a lot. You don't see
there is hope.
There is hope. I actually think I'm incredibly functional at my job, and people seem to enjoy working with me. So that is a positive sign.
Yeah. All right. So guys, tell us the ways that you are doing it with a broken heart. Maybe there's some ways you're not doing so hot. And I'd be really curious to know how far out you are from the loss. And if this resonated or not. So we'll put some question boxes in our Instagram stories and talk to you soon. Bye.
To all of our wonderful new friends, we want to hear from you. Email us at aslongasimlivingpodcast@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at aslongasimlivingpodcast. We'll get back to you as soon as our grieving brains allow.
Yay!